Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chain, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reed.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show. Liz, are you ready to talk about produce today?
I am so ready to talk about produce today.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And did you know that a third of produce never reaches the consumer?
I had no idea, and that's a very scary number.
It is a very scary number. And I mean, that massive amount of food waste actually ends up costing supply chain over $1 trillion annually in revenue. And I'm super excited for today's guests, more so than I always am. All of our guests are super special. But today's guests are actually the winners of our Startup Lab pitch competition. So my team here at GS1 US has been sponsoring a Startup Lab pitch competition for 3 years now. And this year, Strela Biotech won first place, which actually hands out a $10,000 prize. So today, we're honored to have Catherine Sizoff, CEO, and Jay Jordan, COO, and they're both the co-founders of Strela Biotech. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, we're really excited that you can spend some time with us today. And I think Liz has the first question for you.
Yeah, I do. And thank you for joining us. This is going to be a great conversation. Rita and I have been really excited. We saw this on the calendar. We're like, yes, we get to talk and dive in with Catherine and Jay a little bit more. So just first, level set for us. Tell us a little bit about what led you to where you are today and what led to the creation of Strela Biotech.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and start, and then Jay will follow up. I think, honestly, it came from not understanding where my food comes from. So I was a student at University of Pennsylvania and was frankly procrastinating for grad school applications, but kind of stumbled upon the realization that I didn't know where the stuff on the shelf at the grocery store comes from. And got pretty interested in that and started following the supply chain, and eventually realized that there were a number of issues with the way that we deal with food on a daily basis within the supply chain and within the supply chain segments, and got pretty passionate about that and wanted to come up with at least one solution to a very, very large and complex problem.
And I started my career actually in the field side of agriculture and saw how much work went into creating all this food. And when I learned that it all, a large portion of it kind of goes to waste, realized that something needs to be done here and joined Catherine on this mission.
Wow, that's amazing. So you guys were just sitting around and said, let me solve some of the world's problems and I can do it. I love the fact that you weren't fearful of it. I would like to better understand, and I know our audience really wants to understand. So what is the technology that's behind this? Like, what exactly are you doing, with produce?
Yeah, so basically we predict the ripeness of produce. And the way that we do that is we measure gases or signals that they emit. So you've probably seen that fruits talk to each other. When you put an unripe banana next to a ripe one, and you see that it ripens a lot faster than if it was by itself. And this is because fruits talk to each other using gases. And what we have done is we've created technology that allows us to intercept these communications between fruits and thus gauge how mature they actually are.
So would you describe this as like an IoT type of device? Is it a sensor that's going in a bushel or a basket or a box or a container?
Yeah, so it's IoT sensors that are placed in multiple segments along the supply chain. So right now, our primary work is actually super upstream, just after the grower at the packing and distribution house. And we place sensors inside storage facilities for fruit that is stored.
Awesome.
So it is so cool. And honestly, I never really thought about if I put a banana next to an unripe banana, that unripe banana ripens more. The fact that they talk to each other and that you both have figured out a way to capture that is so cool. I guess I've spent a lot of time talking to, the growers, the packers, importers, exporters, and the retail grocery folks along the way about supply chain and traceability and waste. From your perspective, what are the benefits that the innovation has for the different players within the supply chain, even if you're not working with them right now?
Yeah, so you mentioned every customer or future customer, which is great. So you've done some good market research here. I think so. We'll just kind of go downstream, and this is a long answer, so jump in, Catherine. But with packers, they have close connection to the field, and so they have a really great history on their produce. But there's just a lot of different variables that they deal with in the field. So we help essentially say, this fruit is more ripe than this, and so sell it first. So basically, you have these large storage rooms, and we help them get the most out of the storage. For a retailer, they've got large volumes of fruit coming from all over the world, and they don't have nearly as much data on the history of that fruit or that produce. And so they're kind of just selling it in FIFO, first in, first out. And we're helping them reorganize it, what we call FIFO, first expiration, first out. So if you always sell the most ripe produce first, you're going to have better quality and longer shelf life. And for importers, same concept. They're bringing food from all over the world into their import shed, and they have customers with really various needs. Some people want produce that's ready now. Some people want a long shelf life. So we help them understand the produce that they're importing and make better decisions on when and where to send that produce.
And kind of on a really broad level, we think that the 1 trillion food waste problem is caused by two main issues. The first one being a lack of data, so not too much information that's even being generated within the food supply chain about the perishable product. And the second one is siloed supply chain players, which is something that I'm sure you guys understand even better than we do. That even if there is any data that is collected, it's not often transferred between folks. And so we think that this solution kind of helps address both of those problems.
Yeah, I was super excited when I saw your entry into the Startup Lab pitch competition that we had back at our Connect conference. And because we're all about identify, capture, and share, and creating a voluntary, open, standard environment for all to play and participate in, because we truly feel that a rising tide lifts all boats. But it's this visibility and standardization of data sharing and identification of data sharing that really is a game changer. I mean, we've seen it. I was having a conversation. I won't say the name of the chain, but a sandwich shop, a very well-known sandwich shop. You go and get a sandwich or whatever else. And for a long time, they would take in tomatoes and lettuce and, peppers and everything else that goes into sandwiches and all the options. But once it got into their system, it was just labeled as lettuce or tomato. And they didn't have a tracking. So when they had a recall on things, they had to recall everything across the entire United States. And, we got involved with them, and now they're leveraging our standards. So now they are only recalling things from specific areas. I'll tell you, I have so many questions that are just jumping off of my head right now. And last night, my wife and I, we had a little bit of, we called it a discussion, but I'm like, you bought more bananas? And this is true. I'm like, you bought more bananas? Like, they're already going bad. You need to get them from a different place. And in her loving way, she said, relax. It's okay. I'll make banana bread, or I'll make breakfast treats. I'll do something with the bananas you don't like to eat out of, the right off of the tree type of scenario. So what produce are you dealing with today? Are there any restrictions that you can't address today, or can you deal with all produce?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that there are 9 fruits that create 30% of all the food waste that's generated in the supply chain. So our main focus right now is to target those top 9 commodities and work on reducing food waste there so that we can have the largest impact possible, but also be very, very specific in what our initial offerings are.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's maybe been missed in the past, or an approach that we have is different, is these are 9 fruits that are different species grown in different parts of the world. And so they all need to be treated somewhat uniquely in the approach. But to GS1's point, the standardized output on how to treat them within the supply chain. So historically, people have tried to use some generic system to track maturity. We target them all very specifically based upon the fruit, but then our outputs are all very standardized, so they look the same to the customer.
Interesting. All right, Liz, I know you have another question.
I always have more questions. So if you think, and I'm trying to get to when you just said, Jay, about that standard, and something you said earlier about different folks within the supply chain not talking. So your goals, and I'm just going back and making sure I'm clear, you have this standardized export or way of showing the information of these fruits talking that none of us understand, but then the ability to have these siloed conversations happen more easily, not just so the packer knows or the importer exporter, but all across the supply chain in a way that all of these disparate folks in the supply chain can talk. Is that the goal, just to have everybody be able to have the same information?
Yeah, so I think if we're looking at something like the maturity of a crop, it happens not just in the hands of a single person in the supply chain, right? And as Jay was saying, it happens differently for different crops. Like avocados and bananas are vastly different from stone fruit or pome fruit. So what we aim to do is to just capture that whole picture of the maturity of the product as it's moving. And in order for us to do that, we need to be working with a number of different players. And we need to be able to kind of tie in all of this information, whether it's happening upstream closer to the grower or more downstream to the retailer, in order to inform the decisions that all of these people are making.
And so that's awesome. And thank you. One of the things that we've touched on is the standards that we do at GS1 with Identify, Capture, and Share. And, I understand that you're using the standard or thinking about using the standard. And if you're not, how do you see GS1 standards working with, what your solution is?
Yeah, so standards help us exactly with tying our data together from multiple places. So, for example, we use SSCCs because they are a standard between, let's take a packer and a retailer. So a packer might be collecting information kind of, as was mentioned before, in a way that isn't really translatable to anybody else, but they do use this standard of SSCC. And so we can use that information and tie our maturity data to this SSCC, and then also be able to inform the decisions of the retailer.
Yeah, connecting these different parts of the value chain is really critical, and I think that enables a lot of new and unique decisions to be made that will reduce food waste and improve quality, and that helps everyone in the chain, from the packer down to the consumer.
Yeah, and for those of you listening that are like, what is an SSCC? It's a serialized shipping container code. That's what it stands for. So it's more of a large packet item of things, not individuals. So a shipping container and deliveries, and tied to PO information and so on. So I'm glad to hear that you're leveraging that. And there's so many different steps along the supply chain where we need more visibility. And we saw this with the pandemic as well. And it's sharing this information. And then now to have other data laid on top. And we're seeing this more and more and more with the innovation of technology, where we can get richer data, more accurate data, more consistent data, but we still need to tie it to a system of standards that can be shared, and so that everyone can participate in. I want to change gears here real quick and just kind of come back to the Startup Lab pitch competition. You were the first place winner, and you won $10,000. I know that there's still some other things going on, But I'd really love to just kind of get your take on how was the competition? I mean, have you seen any benefits coming out of it? And what do you plan on doing with the $10,000?
Yeah, absolutely. We really enjoyed being part of the competition. I think it's pretty obvious that we do have a lot of synergies and, frankly, like the same theoretical understanding of the supply chain between GS1. And so I think one of our favorite parts is the white paper that we will be hopefully coming out with shortly with GS1. And what we're going to do with the $10,000? Well, I think we are mostly going to be using it to continue building out our team and bonding with our team. So
we've been enjoying some industry relevant things like getting the like Misfit Markets boxes, for instance, and doing apple tastings and taking our team out in the field or at grocery stores, for instance, really connecting our team, especially the R&D team, to the real life changes we're making. So
that is so cool to hear. I've been talking with folks, and a long time ago, because I'm a bit older, but I'd say probably 20 years ago, I had a mentor sit me down and said, "Stop looking at work-life balance. It's life. We have to work, we have to play, we have to cry, we have to laugh, we have to celebrate, we have to share." And it was like, at the end of the day, it was the relationships. That's who shows up at your funeral. That was the message that was shared with me. And I'm just really glad to hear that you're not making it like, this is your job. You go code, you go do this, you go do that. And then someone brings it all together, that you're actually getting them to see it. It reminds me of that old fable of, a person was walking down the street and saw two men laying bricks and said, "Well, what are you doing?" And the one guy goes, "What do you think I'm doing? I'm laying bricks." And the next day, another person walked by and saw the same two guys, but asked the other guy, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building." And in this case, the old fable was, I'm building a chapel of worship so people can, find peace in this world. And it was just a different perspective. And I love to hear that you guys are trying to take that as well. So that's great.
Yeah, to that point, wine is technically produce, so it's on brand for us. So
I love it. Well, Liz and I will come out and help you test some of that.
Absolutely.
Sorry, guys, we're out of it.
All right. So is there anything that's on the horizon, pilots or new ventures that you're thinking of and looking at, or are you staying very, very tightly focused to these nine fruits? Or is it within the 9 fruits that you're looking at, are there new pilots that you're looking for some partnerships? This might be an opportunity to get the word out for that.
Yeah, we're absolutely very much in a growth phase right now. So we're expanding both to different commodities and not just the top 9 fruits, but technology that's applicable to all produce. So we're very focused on that. And then we're also focused on continuing to build relationships with multiple supply chain segments, be that packers or importers and exporters of all different types of produce, as well as retailers.
Yeah, and to that point, something we've definitely seen in this process that we're really appreciative of is we can build, say, a solution or a tool for retail. And because of a lot of these standards that are built out there, we don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. So the great thing is we can invest in a market or an application and use it in multiple places. And GS1's been very helpful in that way.
Great. Liz, do you have another question?
No, I mean, I guess I want to, because you guys are on the forefront of thinking about technology and how fruits talk to each other. I kind of want to just ask you, because I think you have a mind for this in a way that I know I don't. What is your favorite piece of technology that you're using today? I mean, for me, Reed turned me on to taking notes on my iPad. You guys are probably rolling your eyes at me right now. But Catherine and Jay, what's your favorite piece of technology that you're using today?
Honestly, for me, it's so hot right now. So my favorite piece of technology is air conditioning. Nice. I wish that it was more sustainable, but maybe that's the next startup, right? Is a better way to cool us all down.
Absolutely.
Mine would be cars. I like driving. We drive a lot for work, but I've been working on an old car from the 70s, and has really put a lot of appreciation into how amazing cars are today. And technology from every field comes together in this way that's really comfortable. It's been really obvious working on an old car that how far it's come.
Yeah, they've changed a lot. I love cars as well. You said from the 70s. What car are you working on?
We've got a 79 BMW 320i whose engine bay is currently empty.
Excellent. I love those. Break them down and then and build them up. We learn a lot from that. So we ask our guests a lot about something that just breaks their brain. It's they learned about a new technology or a new process, or they just learned something new and it just totally changed the way they looked at the world. They looked at, life and things. I will tell you, your technology broke my brain when I saw it. I'm like, wait, fruits talk to each other via gases? It just amazes me. There's technologies out there that actually use sound to program excuse me, use sound to program other IoT devices. The fact that, we use light to send data, over the internet and everything. So if you all could just share, what's something that's broken your brain?
Well, I definitely have a couple, and they're all kind of food related, I guess, so on brand. But for me, it's honestly the biggest thing that has impacted my life, I think, is that statistic that 40% of all food is wasted before it's consumed. And it was such a ridiculous thing to even hear that it led to the foundation of this company. In terms of technologies, I think there's so much awesome stuff out there that is addressing the problem of food waste, like indoor farming, as an example. It's kind of crazy that we deal with so many variables when we are talking about something that's as essential as food. We're really at the mercy of nature for a lot of just crazy things that happen in the supply chain. And so things like indoor farming can be super beneficial to that. Another thing that really gets me excited is all of these efforts to kind of re-educate consumers about what a good piece of produce looks like or is. And that's kind of what Jay was mentioning before with companies like Imperfect Produce or Misfits Market. We think that that's such a cool effort that, your apple doesn't have to be perfect. It still tastes super awesome. And oftentimes the ones that don't look so cute are actually the ones that taste the best.
Yeah, I've had a couple where I'm like, that apple looks amazing. It feels amazing. And I bite into it and I'm like, this is terrible. And then the one that like, you're giving me this apple, I don't want to eat this. And I'm like, oh, this sounds actually pretty good. I'm good. I'll see you later. Thank you for that. Jay, what do you have?
I've got two that are annoyingly on brand here, not even on purpose. We've been kind of like dealing with supply chain things recently, and it's amazing to me that you like refresh your page in the morning and something's now on the other side of the planet. And I've just been kind of thinking about what that actually means in terms of supply chain. It's kind of trivial when it's on a piece of, it's on your screen, but that's amazing. I think we need to appreciate that a little more. The other one is something that Catherine kind of flexed and dropped some knowledge on us the other day. I didn't realize that figs are where ethylene was discovered. And she might be able to fix my story, but evidently figs used to ripen when there was smoke. There's ethylene in smoke, and that's how ethylene as a ripening mechanism was discovered, which is really cool. I'm really into like these old school ways we've discovered technology, and now we've hacked them to the nth degree.
Yeah. So as context, ethylene is that gas that fruits use to talk to each other. And as Jay was saying, a long time ago in the Middle East, the way that figs used to be harvested or ripened is people would start fires and create smoke, which has got this gas in it. And it actually artificially made those figs think that it was time for them to mature because they were being talked to.
Oh my gosh. That is such a cool story. Liz, I know you want to say something. Go jump in.
No, I mean, it's just so cool that was found and it was discovered, and you take all of this stuff for granted. Jay, like you just said, you just take all of it for granted. So those were awesome brain breaking snippets. Thank you for breaking my brain, I guess, on this beautiful morning because it's crazy.
Yeah, I love stories like that as well. Jay, to your point, it's, looking back at history. I mean, we look at like the way that we used to farm, the way that like Native American Indians would treat the land and the whole process. I mean, we talk about sustainability today and we talk about circular economy today. And there's some memes out there, of the older person at the grocery store and they're like, would you like paper or plastic? And they get into this discussion and they're like, back in my day, milk was delivered and they reused the glass jars all the time. And, we had our own bag that we brought all the time. So they've been recycling and reusing and repurposing their whole life. And then it changed a little bit. And now it's coming back. I can't thank you both enough for spending the time with us today and dropping some knowledge. We wish you much success. We know how hard it is to be a startup and to be out there. There's so much balance, energy, and passion that you have to put into it. And it truly does inspire us all. And we look forward to future conversations and to seeing more about Strela Biotech in the produce supply chain. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.